Gowtham, thank you so much for joining us in the next edition of the Fire Up series, a series of startup founder interviews that we are doing. Just as an experience sharing, some good results or good experiences that the founders have had with different facets. Kaiinos works a lot with government, so
Yes.
we thought like it'd be good to hear from you today on how to win government, because most often the advice to startups is don't go anywhere near government. It's not
Yeah.
easy to sustain. But
Yeah.
not only are you sustaining, but you're growing also. So thought we should just hear from you in terms of how to manage working with government. So thanks, Gowtham, for joining us today.
Yeah. Thank you.
Before,
Thank you.
before we get to the main topic, in the next, if you can just quickly narrate your journey, how did Kaiinos happen? I mean, like you and Kaushik, how did the idea of Kaiinos come up, and what's been the journey like in the last 3-4 years since you've started Kaiinos?
Okay. So we were working in the lab for spatial informatics. Thing is, we were working on issues like urbanization, agriculture, migration, and things like that in the lab. So we thought these things are very important given the context of environmental conservation and things like that. So we thought there should be a commercial entity which is working in these areas, kind of a social enterprise, which is for-profit entity which works with government, and so that government can use this technology to implement or to improve the efficiency of their economics of scale in these areas. So that's how we started, and it has been a good journey. We've been involved with the government on major projects, but technically our domain is pretty simple. All the thing that we deal with is a two-dimensional coordinate system, or at the max three-dimensional, with time as probably fourth dimension in some of the cases. So the data model wise, we have a pretty robust data model in dealing with this. But then the data sets come from different sources, because we work with government and things like in projects like irrigation projects or fiber optic projects. We don't. Sometimes we work directly with government. Sometimes we work with vendors who are working with government. So there, we've been now dealing with vehicle mounted cameras, drones, and lidar systems as well. Because we have over a period of time, we built some in-house machine learning algorithms in handling data. It has been not very difficult for us to actually migrate to data sources like lidar or drone images. So that has been our journey. So especially in scenario like this where COVID is affecting, because we are providing services to entities which are either in primary sector of economy or the manufacturing sector. We have been fairly stable. We have been getting fairly stable revenue even in this scenario, because these are essential services.
So how do you? I mean, like when you started, obviously, I mean, spatial informatics is such the government is a very large consumer, but there are a lot of other private sector consumers as well. So how
Yes.
did you kind of initially zero in on government? How did it happen? Is it that somebody came and approached you with the problem, or did you go and reach out to somebody with a solution?
We actually started with private, Ramesh. We were actually working with, we were trying to work with logistics companies where they have large number of vehicles to be managed. And most of them, even 5-6 years back, had GPS devices. So we were trying to get into that analytics space. But after doing one or two prototypes, we realized that their margins are wafer thin, and they do not intend to spend on anything research oriented kind of a thing unless they have a full scale system, and where there is some kind of unit pricing. But to develop that kind of a system, we need to have use cases and people ready to experiment. But during this journey, we met some of them from government who are interested to test this out, whatever we are doing on auditing their activities or large geographies. Like they have people moving around to actually inspect culverts, inspect school buildings and things like that. So there we started providing location intelligence based solutions. That's how our journey started. It was accidental. We approached private, but then government turned out to be a better customer for us, because there are people who are ready to have some kind of research oriented solutions to improve their efficiency.
So the was the opportunity kind of stronger because it needed the state of the art from research? I mean, the problems were such that there are no commercially available solutions. Was it one of the drivers? I mean, how you could manage to get these projects?
One thing is actually Indian context. We have the lab basically was working only on problems specific to India. So that was one advantage for us, where we could provide tailor-made solutions to our market, whereas the ready-made off-the-shelf solutions didn't work here. So that was one reason where we got initial foothold. And then once we had some one or two working solutions, there were other people who were ready to use them in large scale. That's how we started growing actually.
So the when you go and work with the government, is it that you directly go to a government department, or do you go with some other player that's already involved also? Maybe it's an EPC company, or it's some other technology provider or a larger services provider. So do you go directly to the government department, end user department, or do you go to one of these other companies that are already engaged?
We actually have done both. We have directly approached government initially, but given the size of our company, it was difficult to get projects directly. They were looking for experience, turnover, and things like that. After that, we started collaborating with concerned entities to get the works, where the collaboration brings in different phases of the solution, and then things started becoming bigger. So now we actually work with government. Say there are research institutions within government, so we provide services to that institution, and that institutions provide services to large scale primary entities of government. Say, for example, we provide service to research or like Forest Survey of India, and then Forest Survey of India provides services to all forest departments in all the states. So that kind of setup is something that we have used.
So Gautam, can you give some of the examples of the projects that you've done for the government?
So one big project that we have done is mapping Western Ghats, then mapping water bodies in Telangana. These two have been the Western Ghats project we've done. We've monitored the entire area for about 6 years, and it's still running. And then Telangana water bodies up for about 3 years. So this actually, both of them are collaborative projects where we have collaborated with the Foundation for Western Ghats and IIIT for Mission Kakatiya in Telangana. So here we had a platform already built for monitoring geographical areas for Delhi government. So we took that product and scaled it to specific domains like water and forests in Western Ghats and Telangana. So the challenge there was actually getting that to people actually. In Telangana, we were able to effectively roll it over to the department. Department is now owning that and running the system for the past 5 years or so now. Whereas in Western Ghats, it was more a citizen-oriented approach. We were able to roll it out in state like Goa and to some extent in Kerala, but other states didn't fare well actually.
So typically, when you work directly with the government, what is the timeline? I mean, like the time it takes from the opening, kind of however it has come, till winning the project, and then from winning to kind of getting paid. What's the typical timeline?
Actually, it takes at least 1 year to convince government to give you project. So we have to do at least 2-3 prototypes. to get things rolling, and then convince all the concerned parties that we have the capability to take up the project. So once they are convinced, it'll be smooth actually. It will be smoother than private. Private part, the initial convincing is easier, but closing the project in private is challenging sometimes. Whereas in government, it's initial part is tough, but then once the project starts, it will be long term, and then funds will flow smoothly. And government does not have problem in paying because these are essential environment services, and they have enough budgets and planned budgets for all.
I think that's a very important point. While it's not easy getting the government business, but once you get the business, at least payments won't be a problem. But
Yes,
but typically, how about the timelines? So there's an issue with the timelines, right? In terms of like government, how long does it take to pay?
Timelines, Ramesh, we have had problems with both private and government because the sectors themselves are like that. So any primary sector, I think, has challenges with payments. So because the chain is pretty big, so by the time you get, it has to. There is a hierarchy in both private and public. So that is a challenge that we have faced both in private and public.
So you don't see any particular difference in the
in private we have bigger challenges because government has to pay if it is an irrigation project, government has to pay the contractor and contractor has to pay to us. So if private, it is much more delayed for us.
Oh, that's surprising because most people will tell the other way around. That's very, very surprising.
If it is service sector, probably it's a different case, but primary sector, it's government is better.
Very interesting. That's something you don't hear normally. It's that government is easier to work with than private, especially for payments. So, so if you can just again, I know I asked this already, but just if you can summarize the steps typically involved when you work with the government. So, do you have to go as a startup? Do you wait for the government to ask, or do you go and pitch to the right department that looks at a solution as possible?
We actually do two things, Ramesh. We first present our research in conferences where people generally gather. Geospatial World Forum, which happens in Hyderabad, is a very good gathering in such gathering every year. It happens yearly or probably once in 2 years. Then we conduct workshops to government departments, either through Open Source Geospatial Foundation, or we go there and then conduct. Dehradun is a place where there are lots of entities which use GIS. So we have conducted some workshops in Dehradun. So that is where we get the leads. So once we get the leads, earlier we had to do a lot of prototyping and it used to take a lot of time to convince them. But now, because we have been there in the market, the prototyping time has come down from say 1 year to hardly 1 or 2 months. So in 1 or 2 months, we are able to convert the leads into projects.
So that's
and because we have yeah.
So you get so you obviously as just a run-of-the-mill solution provider, you don't want to go to the government because there's no particular value. So first thing you're saying is like it has to be clear that you're bringing some very unique value. Like in your case, coming out of research. So the research conferences and presenting the solution, the research conference is a starting point. So they're the credible value got established. And then you go reach out to the right department saying, look, we've done something like this, we're published here, and it's useful for you in this way. So that's opportunity spotting you have to do.
Yes.
And you go to the right department and say, look, this is the work we have done, and this is what this could do for you. So, and then once they are convinced, then, so I think that's where I think the difference comes. Most startups deal with run-of-the-mill solutions. When you're doing a solution that anybody could do, there's no particular reason why the government should work with you. So I think a key point here is like you should be doing something very unique, preferably with some very strong intellectual backing, like research work and such. And that is when you should go to the government because they need something that you have, and so it's easier for them to engage.
Yes, Ramesh.
I think the spotting the opportunity, very short time it takes to get the project. All of those are, I think, hinging around the fact that what you're doing is something very unique and not many people can do, right?
Yeah. Yes, yes, Ramesh.
Okay.
That is very
So that's a key part of the whole thing. So
yeah.
so I think that's very interesting. I think most people don't look at that when they try to work with the government. They just say, look, I have this product, government can use it, let me go pitch. I don't think that is convincing enough or compelling enough. So you need to do a little bit more than that.
Yes, yes.
And so now, before we wrap up, you've been doing this, I mean, at Kaiinos for more than 4 years now. You managed to work with the government, you managed to work with private sector. You're constantly looking at, I mean, for you, no particular product is your focus. Spatial informatics is your focus. So you're looking at different problems to solve around spatial informatics. Now, through this whole journey, if you have to give one growth hack tip to other startups from your experiences, what would that growth hack tip be?
One growth hack is we should have different diversified portfolio as such. So depending on one revenue stream is very difficult for us. We do workshops, we do consultancy works, and then we do projects. And we have a product where we directly don't sell it. We embed that into our projects, and 60% of the project is a product, and 40% is a customer. So we don't restrict ourselves looking for customers who are directly trying to use our product. That makes sales difficult for a startup. So we have to be flexible. We should be ready to customize, build customized solutions to the client requirements. That's where we have been successful, Ramesh. So we are working in agriculture, forest, water, and any civil engineering kind of things like national highways, fiber optic cables. So all these places where there is coordinate system needed, we are able to provide solutions.
No, that's I think that makes a lot of sense, especially when you're working with sectors like government. It's unlikely they can use a canned product or solution as is, which means you need to have some IP that you can leverage and then customize it. So look at product differently. It is not a canned, ready-to-use product, but look at a pre-built IP that accelerates independent solutions, individual solutions.
Yes, Ramesh.
Okay, that's fantastic. So Gowtham, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today. And so wish you, Kaushik, and others in the team all the best, and please stay safe.